Hi, folks, and welcome back to Beyond the Core podcast. We're now on to part six, our final part of our conversation with Captain Matt Frost, retired. So let's get on with it.
So, in regards to your suicidal thoughts, you had
Yeah.
obviously you had it at that time, and that started your leaving, and and all as you discussed.
Yeah.
Have those gone away? Have they been an ongoing issue?
No, pretty much as soon as the pressure was off, they went, and I was feeling much better about it. And on top of that, as soon as my wife and I split, my life instantly got better. And
Yep.
I haven't really been able to nail that down until recently. But I suspect that we were codependent, and
Yep.
that has a negative feedback cycle after a little while. Yeah, if she's in a bad mood, then you're in a bad mood, and you're in a bad mood, so she's in a bad mood, and your bad moods just get worse, and you just
Yep.
end up sort of not really enjoying each other's company, and that safe place that you should be holding for each other just doesn't exist anymore. It becomes a combative zone where you're looking, you just get niggled by each other without really realizing why. And because I was dealing with stuff that was sensitive and I wanted to protect her from, it
Yep.
became very, very difficult. And that feedback cycle happened all the more regularly.
Yep.
So since I've done a lot of personal growth and development on myself, and I've done a PTSD recovery program. I've done the work. I've got a binder full of worksheets and
Yep.
notes and drawings and mind maps and all of that stuff that help me unfuck myself basically.
I
Um,
could not recommend doing a PTSD course enough to anyone who
you
could
got to
possibly
do
have
it.
it.
You have
It,
got to
it
do it.
just that
Yeah.
ownership that it gives you of the understanding of why you might be feeling the way you're
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah. Understanding that process, understanding the way that every time you get triggered, that memory that is triggered gets flavored, and the flavor deepens by whatever emotion you're feeling at the time. That
Yeah.
blew my mind. When I realized what I was doing, I was recalling that time in the cockpit where I was, my lungs were on fire and how angry and frustrated I was. Well, those emotions were just getting painted on top of each other, like an old VHS tape that was getting worn out at the
Yeah.
same point every time. It was getting harder and harder to remember anything positive, and
Yep.
easier and easier to be made angry and frustrated. And once I understood that cycle, oh, absolute game changer. And then we did a process whereby we went and allocated blame. So before doing, allocated blame to the people that were responsible for my trauma,
Yep.
basically. And, I had it was like 90% myself at the time. I was carrying around all this blame that I wasn't able to make a difference, and I wasn't able to protect my co-pilots, and I wasn't able to protect myself or changes, all of these things that we've been talking about. And we did this exercise. Okay, now write down who's to blame. And I was like, well, it's fucking not me. and
Yeah.
and just that the weight lifted, and I just cried, like remembering
Yeah.
now, just the
Oh,
joy that I'm feeling now, remembering that feeling of that weight being lifted. Holy shit! Yeah,
yep.
if you're carrying around a burden of blame or shame or guilt or whatever you want to call it, man, you've got to do the program. You've got to do the work with someone who knows how to do it as well. Like that's the important thing. You can't really struggle through this stuff yourself. It just
Yep.
doesn't work. You need someone there to point the way and to hold your hand when it gets rough.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. It's you'll have those eureka moments through your or those light bulb moments through your journey, and some of them are painful. Some of them are looking in the mirror. Some of them are realizing, okay, I've got to make a decision here, there, or whatever. But some
Yeah.
of them are releasing you from that pain. Some of them
Yeah.
are releasing you and going, that wasn't my fault.
Yeah, yeah, and
That was I've literally probably had that in the last few months, and it
yeah,
is
it's
it's
it's it, it it's
there's no
indescribable. The reason
words.
we can't describe it is because it's
Yeah.
indescribable, mate. You cannot fathom the difference it makes when you finally come to that resolution. And I remember doing it, and the counselors. It was like a 6 or 8 week program.
Yeah.
The counselors at the start was like, "Hey, you're gonna have some rough time, and during the heavy time, you are gonna have a headache. You are not going to believe." I'm like, headache? Yeah. And then, my gosh, when the headache set in, She described it as our brains basically just untangling that stuff. All of a sudden, the choke point that was us trying to process that time that was so hectic and chaotic and filled with grief and guilt
Yeah.
just became unblocked. And that was
Yeah.
our brain refiling the memories in the correct order and
Yeah.
processing all of that stuff. And I think the headache lasted for like 3 or 4 days, and we were encouraged to not do anything about it. Don't take Panadol, don't drink, don't, just sit with it. This
Yeah.
is this is your brain unfucking itself. Um, that whew, yeah,
I think people have to understand that PTSD isn't necessarily a trauma. I know it's got the word in it, but it doesn't have to be a visual thing or something that happened. It can be a continuum. It can be just experiences. It can be so much. You know,
yeah,
and the other word I hate is I hate the fact that it's called a disorder. It should be PTSI. It should be a stress injury, a post-traumatic stress
yeah,
injury. It's it's not a disorder. It's an injury.
yeah.
It,
I think you're right there, and I'm pretty sure that the DSM will reflect those changes in
yeah.
short order, and they'll definitely add more of a spectrum to it. Just
Yes.
like just like ASD used, autism is now ASD because it's on a spectrum.
Yep.
So I 100% agree with you, and what I also think is that there's not enough, maybe and having been through this, and not no one single incident was enough to make me to change my life forever. But
Yep.
the accumulation of multiple incidences over time within this framework of a safety system that should have
Yep.
not
That
let that happen,
betrayal.
with commanders who should have known better and should have done something about it sooner and should have listened to us, that is what causes the problem, I think.
Yep.
On top of, and I had I guess you could call it a predisposition to it because I'd been raised with the values of hard work, and if you follow the rules, everything will be okay. If you're a good person, good things will happen to you.
Moral
And
justice.
right, yeah, and my strong sense of justice that I'm doing the right thing, so I'll be
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Um, all worked against me in this particular instance, which made this accumulation of all of these small little moral injuries add up to me just
Yep.
not coping. And and then also, I probably would have been okay if I'd had someone at home to unload this shit with, and to
Yep.
unpack it. There's someone to hold my hand in front of the TV and tell me that it was all going to be okay, and just debrief with. But
Yep.
I never really felt that was possible with my partner at the time.
Yep.
Again, no disrespect to her. It's just some people have it, some people don't, I guess. And
For
our
us, it's a journey. So I know me and my wife, we had that. We had that problem where
yeah,
if I was sad, she would get sadder and it would become about her. And
yeah,
we managed to communicate our way through that where I said, by doing that, you're making me then not be able to concentrate on healing me because then I'm concentrating on healing you.
yeah,
And we managed to talk our way through that. And I remember one time we went out to town and we'd had a great night and I left my glasses in a pub or a club and my and we were walking home and I realized and I went back in and they were closing up. So it was stupid o'clock in the morning. And they let me back in to have a look and they couldn't find it. And I went home and my world ended. I was devastated for no particular reason. It wasn't about the glasses. My cup just flew over
yeah,
and I bawled my eyes out. And she sat there and did not say a word. She put her hand on my shoulder and shut up. And I basically cried and fell asleep. And I said to her the next day, you couldn't have done anything better.
That was so wholesome. That's exactly what you need, isn't it? Just someone to shut the
Yep.
fuck up and sit there and just be with you in your shit.
Yep. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
getting
yeah.
emotional thinking about that now
Yeah,
because
I'm getting
it was
emotional you describing it. I know exactly what you
because
mean.
it
Exactly.
was the therapy I needed.
Yeah,
Sometimes you can't,
yeah,
you don't need to fix it. You need to feel it. You need to sit in it. You
yeah,
need to be in it. And yeah, you as a friend or as a supporter from somebody who's going through it, my only advice is don't try and fix them. Let them be there and
yeah,
just be there for a shoulder to cry on. Do not make it a pissing
yeah,
competition on who's the most depressed.
yeah. And this is something that I've only just recently learned. So, I go to therapy regularly now. Every 2 weeks, I talk to my psychologist, and something we've recently I guess started doing, or I've started doing at her encouragement, was it's called an activation. And I don't know whether you've heard of it before, but basically you go back to the thing that made you annoyed, right? So it might not be appropriate to get angry at the lady at the MBR, or
Yeah.
the Centrelink office, or the checkout chick at Woolies, right? But you're feeling frustrated and angry, or you're steamed at your kids for doing something wrong or whatever. It's one of the things that I focused on during the PTSD program was I really didn't know how to be angry. I had no idea when it was appropriate to be angry. I had no idea what level of anger I should get to for certain things. I just had
Yeah.
no concept, because ever since I was a kid, I've been told don't be angry,
Yeah.
right? Good boys don't get angry. You don't need to get angry about that. Any variation on just hide your emotions, right? So it would just come out at the most random times, and things would accumulate over time until you just blow up at something innocuous,
Yeah.
6 months later,
Yeah.
right? So with that in mind, and taking what I know from the PTSD program, where we learn to identify our own, I guess, escalation of
Yeah.
anger. I'm grinding my teeth, I'm clenching my fists, I feel hot and spiky, whatever it may be. I want to punch you in the face, and there's really not much you can do to calm me down. Uh, I learned how to slow that process right down. So
Yeah.
really stretch it out. So now my escalation from 2 to 3 takes a long time,
Yeah.
and three is me feeling a little bit peeved. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. I can be a little bit peeved. But what I didn't really know how to do was what to do about it afterwards, right? Because that anger's got to go somewhere.
Yep.
So lately, what I've started to do is go back to that moment and relive the frustration, in my mind. Remember what it was like to feel that frustrated and that angry, and why did that hurt me so much, and why am I angry about it? And my goodness, it's been just so amazing. So I went out to my wood pile, I took my axe out, and I just screamed bloody murder at this wood, chopped the crap out of it. I was so loud, my neighbor called up and was like, "Hey man, you okay?" I was like, "Yeah." I was just,
I'm
just
just doing
processing something.
therapy.
Yeah, basically, don't worry about it. That's going to happen every now and then, and you just have to be okay with it. Um, and she was quite understanding, thankfully. But it has just been an absolute game changer. And the same thing applies for feeling sad. And I've recently gone through a breakup, and I was just absolutely devastated about it. But life has to carry on. You can't break down in tears at the supermarket. Well, I mean, of course you can, but
Yeah. People just
it's
look at
kind
you
of
funny. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of impractical at the time. So what I've done is not. I don't bury that away and just don't worry about it anymore. But when I get home, I'm just like, man, I am sad, and that's totally okay. This is a fucking sad time. So
Yeah.
just let that shit out, and it's something that I've just taught my kids to do as well, which is so wholesome. Like, it's so fulfilling to see them process their emotions correctly. I'm like,
Feel the
sweetie,
feels.
you're gonna feel absolutely rubbish for 30 seconds. You're gonna feel so sad. You're gonna cry, and then you're gonna be totally okay with it. Trust me. And
Yeah.
she's taken that on board and is processing emotions beautifully at the moment, which is just so great, because I feel like I've broken the cycle a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Crying is
and
massively underrated.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
it's really good therapy. So
sometimes
I've
it's an
been
outlet. It'll be better than any therapy. It's an outlet of an emotional and physical pain that
yeah.
sometimes you just need to cry it out.
Yeah, and this comes after not only my childhood being quite sanitized of emotion, but my career as well. Like, we
Yeah.
weren't allowed to get excited in the cockpit. We weren't allowed to, during a debrief, like you said before, not only do we check our ego at the door, we also checked everything else.
Yeah.
So, hey man, I was really disappointed. Wait, stop. That's an emotion. And disappointment is an emotion. You don't need to bring that shit into the debrief.
Yeah.
What you need to tell me is
Give
where I
me
failed and
facts.
what I can
Yeah.
exactly. So I guess my you know my life mirrored my career in many ways, and I would just start sanitizing things because it was inefficient or it was unhelpful at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the detriment of my relationships, of course, because your wife
Yeah.
doesn't want to see a robot. She doesn't want to marry an android who
Yeah.
is this unfeeling, unblinking, stoic, statue. So I've learned a huge deal about that stuff, and also can see the immediate reward of doing it correctly.
Yep.
That's been one of the changes I've implemented, and that's going to stick around for sure. It's one of the best things I've ever done, and I wish I'd done it 20 years ago. I wish I'd done it. I wish I knew about it when I was a kid, of course, but you don't know that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll be teaching everybody I encounter to properly process that stuff, and it makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we now? So you're now been medically discharged. So you are
Yeah.
a former Army captain.
Former army pilot, yeah, I'm medically discharged, but I tell people I'm retired because honestly, I don't feel like telling the story a lot of the time.
Oh,
Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, look, if we're close enough that I don't need to tell you that I'm retired, we're close enough that you know the details. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was in 2020. I discharged.
Yep.
I think 2 years ago, 2021, started going to university. If you spend enough time talking to psychologists, you kind of want to be one. So I'm studying Bachelor of Psychological Science at JCU.
Yep.
I've recently taken like 18 months off that. I just had my son born. He's 18 months old this month. So that time has been sort of better spent at home looking after him and being part of his life. I don't really want to miss anything. And on top of that, my wife needed a lot of support as well. So I focused on that.
Yeah.
And I recently bought a new property. So I've been spending a lot of time renovating that and using the skills of a lifetime, working with my old man, getting that up to scratch. Where from and where to now? Well, I'll be working towards my degree over the next few years. I want to move into performance psychology, something in the performance field. I don't exactly know what that will look like. I've got a couple of ideas I'm waiting to flesh out in the next couple of months to see if they'll hold up to scrutiny. I'm kind of doing an idiot check before I go all in on that stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to help. I want to help people just like me. Like I always, whenever I do something, I want to be 100% effort. I want to be the best at it. And what I didn't realize at the time when I was fully committed to my career was the cost that you end up paying. So if I was a little bit more smarter about it, I would have sought out someone who knew more than I did, someone who was wiser, a mentor, whatever it may be. And I would have sought their wisdom. And I would like to be that guy. I want to be, hey, how do I be awesome at sport, being a dad, and my job without losing myself?
Yeah.
How do I get to the top of my field in whatever it is without forgetting about how to treat my wife nicely? How do I teach my kids what I wish I'd known in a way that doesn't make them hate me? Stuff like that. So I feel like I've got a lot to give in that area.
Where you can still be what you want to be, the best that you can be,
right,
but not ostracize everything else at the cost of everything else.
Exactly. And there was a balance to be found, and I missed it. Hand on heart, totally missed it. I totally missed the balance. I was an excellent water skier. I was an excellent marathon runner, adventure racer. I was not an excellent husband. I could have been a much better dad because I was giving too much to the wrong. Well, I'm going to say the wrong. I was giving too much in areas that I didn't know was costing me at the time, which is I think perhaps a better way of phrasing it. I didn't realize that by committing so much to work, I was neglecting my marriage. I didn't realize that by sanitizing my emotions, I was neglecting my wife. I just didn't realize that was a thing that could happen.
You thought you were protecting.
Right, exactly. The what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, man, you've got to learn that shit eventually. So I think I've got a lot to give in that area, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I hope that I can do it in a way that would make my old self proud, I guess. Like looking back, I want to be the guy. I want to be my own mentor that I should have had 20 years ago. If I could write a note to that guy, what would it say? That type of thing. So yeah, I want to turn. I've got a decent property out here. Now I'd like to turn it into a place where we could do, small group men's retreats,
Yep.
exactly like my PTSD program. I don't
Yep.
necessarily feel the need to delve as deeply as we did on that program, but there are tools out of that are completely relevant and invaluable to guys like me who
Yep.
haven't necessarily, had the whole PTSD diagnosis, who aren't struggling with medication changes and all that kind of stuff, but who just need something. Hey, something's missing in my life. I'm not quite sure what it is. Well,
Yep.
it turns out that you're bottling up your emotions too much. Cool. We
Yep.
can solve that. Come out with a bunch of guys. Let's do a testosterone fest.
Yep.
Process that. Learn from each other. I'm a big believer that a lot of our problems in modern sort of society can be solved by a tribe mentality, where
Yep.
thinking about how perhaps the Amerindians used to live with a shaman, a medicine woman, that have a group of wise women and a group of warriors. Hey, you've got a problem. You go to the shaman. He gives you a methodology to go and have a vision quest or whatever it is. Well, we don't really have that kind of stuff nowadays. You go to a doctor and
No,
he prescribes something. It's not really
that's
the
right.
same.
Have
Yeah,
a
you
drug.
don't. Yeah, you don't really get. You don't go on a 3 day hunting trip with the lead warriors as easily as we
Yep.
used to. That
We
sort of
we
thing.
are
So
the most connected the world has ever been, but the most disconnected the world has ever been.
exactly, that's an excellent way of phrasing it. So I would like to be in a position where I can use not only the stuff that I've learned throughout my life and my career, and that learned from my awful mistakes that could have been far far better managed, but also take the modern psychological science,
Yep.
collect data, get feedback, and create a program that helps men, boys, women, partners, all of that kind of stuff. Where you can come out and,
Yep.
and learn at that just that really easy base level of how to do this stuff better. And
Yep.
from that, if you're not struggling with hiding your emotions or learning how to communicate with your wife, imagine what could be possible. Like if you're already
Absolutely.
if you're already doing well in a certain field, imagine how powerful you could be by applying similar mentalities of that learning to the other areas of your life. It would be incredibly powerful, I think. So I'm
Yep.
excited. I would like to pursue that more. And yeah, I've got an exciting sort of few years ahead of me, I think.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And you do some modeling?
Yeah, I actually had a gig this morning. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I did just like a bucket list type item where I modeled for a life drawing group, and I've
Yep.
seemingly overnight, all of the studios, the art studios, and artists in town had my number, so I get calls pretty regularly now to come and model for art studios, for life drawing and sculpture, for all of that kind of stuff,
Yep.
and
So
it's
for those that can't see Matt, he's built like a brick shit house. You've done some bodybuilding in your time, haven't you? You've done some
yeah.
bodybuilding comps.
Yeah, it was actually this time last year. I went to my first competition and I did okay for an old bloke. I cleaned up in the over 40s, so I got gold in a couple of the categories. Came fifth in overall, which I was really stoked about because I was up there with a
Yep.
couple of huge younger blokes. It's something that the I don't know. It started out as rehab, basically
Yep.
just a rehab from shoulder surgery and from my back injury and stuff. And I've really just enjoyed the whole process. I enjoy going to the gym and sweating it out, and you can really grit your
It's
teeth
your
and,
it's your
and
personality, isn't it? You got to be the best at everything. If it
yeah,
lift the
it is.
heaviest, be the
It is,
biggest.
and it has taken some real discipline to work around my injuries because I want to lift the heaviest you've ever seen, but
Yep.
that's also going to break my spine and hurt my knees and bend my Achilles back out of shape. So I've necessarily had to temper my determination, my my attitude towards that kind of thing, which is a great lesson that
How
I've had to learn. Yeah.
how have you dealt with the come down after the bodybuilding? So, obviously, my wife's a PT. She's had friends that have done bodybuilding. That is you at your absolute peak. It is an unsustainable journey. It's an
Man.
unsustainable destination, and then
Yeah.
you'll never be at that full peak unless you go and get re sort of
Yeah.
admit to that journey. How do you deal with that? Okay, because that is your peak.
It,
physically.
it, yes, and it can become, I guess, quite addictive. I can completely relate with the guys who do it year in, year out, because man, to be in that shape is incredible. It's absolutely, you feel incredible. So to give you an idea, I was up at about 87 kilos. So I'm 81 or whatever today. I was at 87 kilos. My stage weight was 71. I weighed in on the
Oh
day of my
shit.
competition. I was lean. Yeah, I'd spent 20 something weeks in prep, which is the cut phase leading up to a
It's a
competition.
lot of broccoli
Um,
and chicken.
if you were lucky, my calories were down to 1,100 calories a day at the end, and
Jesus.
I was doing a workout every day, or 6 days a week. I was
Yeah.
doing 12 to 14,000 weighted steps every day, and I was doing 2 or 3 cardio sessions a week. So
Yeah.
basically it worked out to be 3 or 4 hours a day doing nothing but working out. And I was on the treadmill, incline with the weighted vest on, just doing steps for hours and hours and hours and hours. It was just unbelievable. It was brutal. It's not something you necessarily want to do, but the result, standing up on stage, knowing you'd worked to achieve it was really, really awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm currently in a build phase at the moment. I have a coach, and I'm smart enough to follow his wise advice without, you know, just do what the smart guy says is basically my motto at the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're aiming for something maybe 18 months from now, maybe 2026. Get in comp again, but basically between here and there, I'm happy to maintain. I don't necessarily balloon to massive fatness like I used to, which is okay. Like you can definitely bodybuild like that. It's not probably as efficient maybe to
No.
put on muscle, but I like feeling fit and looking healthy at the same time. And modeling gigs during this time of the year are pretty popular. So
Yeah.
yeah, and a few years ago, I got myself an agent, and I've done TV commercials, and I regularly do movie auditions and that kind of thing as well,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. Like having to learn a Boston accent in less than 24 hours in order to do a read for a movie is an interesting challenge, which keeps you sharp, I guess. Like you kind of got to be ready for anything, and you've got to
Yeah.
pretend stuff all the time, which is an interesting challenge that I never thought I'd be a part of.
Yeah, that's cool. I've just recently been to some improv comedy and I loved it. That's something I'd love to do up
Yeah,
here,
right.
but I don't think there is any improv groups down here. I just really like that sharp-witted comebacks and things like that. Uh, um no, that's awesome. So if anyone wants to find you or contact you or modeling or put you in a TV commercial, how do they get hold of you?
Yeah. So Silverfrost80 on Instagram. Uh, I'm pretty, I guess, active on Instagram, and I'm about to ramp that up in the next little while as well. But yeah, you can reach out through that. I'd be happy to hear from anybody who wants to talk about my story, or I don't know, the way that I process things.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with ADHD or autism, like I did for many, many years, I'm also happy to talk about that journey, because that's been a real eye opener as well. Completely aside from all of the other stuff that I've had to process,
Yeah.
just working out why I was so weird for so long, and why I
Things
couldn't
made
understand.
sense.
Yeah, all of a sudden things made sense. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's been a journey all of its own.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I don't know, if you're interested in making your life better, I'd love to hear from you, and hear what would make a difference in your life, because that's something I'm genuinely interested in. I think it's a field of study that's perhaps not as well researched as it
Yeah.
perhaps could be. You
Yeah.
know,
And that's genuinely the reason I'm doing this podcast is because I want people to A, understand if they're on a downhill journey, but B, understand the journeys of whether you're a loved one of a first responder or defense force or whatever, or whether you're going through it yourself. Sometimes you need to hear other people's journeys to go, holy shit, that resonates.
yeah, something that I learned during my army career is that the the best person to assess your fatigue is not yourself. And I think that applies to actually a number of things in our life. If you're if you're struggling but you think you've got a handle on it, you're probably not, and you should probably get a second opinion. If
Yeah.
if you think you're absolutely killing it in an area, get a second opinion of someone whose opinion you value.
Yeah.
It's really worth its weight in gold. It's something that I had to learn. It's really, really hard to check your ego about that stuff. You think you're really good at something. Actually, mate, you've got a big hole. You're not. You got a big blind spot. You can't even see it. It's right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was one of the things that I really, really enjoyed about my career, was that I could immediately make a difference in someone's life, in their work life, by saying, "Hey, this is the hole that you're not seeing right now. This is how to get better at it. You'll be a better pilot than me. If you go away and learn that thing, you'll be a better pilot than me in no time." And I really, really love that, because, telling a young bloke who is struggling or thinks he's doing okay that, hey, this is how to get even better, was just incredible. It was such a good feeling, and knowing that they were better than me without ego was just fantastic. Like, that made me a better pilot, because I was able to help someone else. It was really wonderful. And the moment that circle gets fully closed, if you can learn from someone else how to check your ego and take feedback, god damn, that's a powerful tool right there. And that's one of the things I've maintained throughout my life, is just accept that you don't know some stuff and find someone who does.
And I think the other thing is, though, most people are very susceptible or very open to take negative feedback or criticism, because I think that's what's offered most of the time. We're really shit at taking good feedback.
People don't know how to take a compliment, mate, or something I found really, really, actually really irks me now, because I hold you in high esteem in this regard because you're excellent at this. Oh, and they'll try to diminish your comment. I'm like, shut up and accept my compliment. I tell them straight to their face now. I'm completely blunt about it. I'm like, the correct way to respond to that was thank you and a small smile. Should we try again? I'm just completely blunt about it now. It's like if someone doesn't shake your hand properly, you feel a bit yuck about it. They're like, hey, hey, look at me in the eye and firmly grab my hand.
Let's do that again, because that was pathetic.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm blunt about that now. I'm like, I gave you a compliment. Let's do this. Yeah.
That's cool. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've gone for 3.5 hours, and I loved every minute of it, mate. I really appreciate it. From the moment we started talking, I knew you were the man to have on this, because we started talking. We were very open with each other very, very quickly on our journey. So yeah, mate, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to maintaining a friendship, and I hope that I can have some sort of involvement in your ongoing project. I would love to be out there.
Mate, that's great. You've got an excellent style, and I love talking with you as well. It's really great. Really great. You're doing an excellent job. Thanks very much for having me.
Appreciate it, mate. So if anyone's got any feedback, beyond the call, peter@gmail.com. If you want to be put in touch with Matt, if you need any of his details, give me a yell. Appreciate everyone listening and sticking by, and look forward to the next one. So thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, mate.
That's great. Catch you later, Pete.
Bye, everyone.